Okay, so next we have a fireside chat with Guiomar, Vista, and Margaret Bridge. And we're going to chat about changing careers into tech. And they both have inspiring career journeys to share with everyone today. So Guiomar is a team lead at Zendesk, and she has been before a software engineer in test and psychologist before that, among many other things. And when she still had hobbies before her latest Raise a Human project, she loved to learn stuff, read, play board games, and plan the next trip during the current one. I can relate to that. I do that quite a lot too. And Margaret Bridge is a software engineer intern with Zendesk and working with the top team in Dublin. She came to a software engineering from working full time as a freelance opera singer, and she enjoys balancing both singing and engineering. I wonder if you're going to give us a show of your singing today. And with the little free time left over, she likes to read, run, and hike. So I'm going to welcome them both to the stage. Hello.
Hello, Sapphire.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
For disclosure, I think here. I was going to say, for disclosure, people should know Guiomar is also my manager.
Yes, and this is totally going to performance.
Oh, it's so great to have you both here today. I have so many questions to ask you. So I guess we can get started with the first one. So I'm really interested to hear why did you decide to change into tech, and what made you want to take that leap? Margaret, if you want to be the first one to answer.
Sure. So for me, I think that's really a two-part question. So it was why change and why change into tech. And I was working, as you say, as a full-time freelance opera singer. You know, the old sort of stereotypes about you'll never make much money as an opera singer. And that was definitely one thing. But it was a very unstable, insecure kind of life. And even success in opera generally looks like having to spend about 10 months of the year away from home, which didn't really appeal to me. But as well as all that, I think I had a feeling that there was something kind of missing. I'm quite an ambitious person. I wanted to do something that had impact and where hard work would pay off. And I think the music business, it's very much about luck. And if you can get lucky, you can do very, very well. But there was a kind of a frustrating sense that I could work very, very hard and maybe not get to have the impact that I wanted to have. So that was one thing that had started me looking elsewhere. In terms of why tech, I had started learning to code actually after doing some sort of website work through, I think, Squarespace or something like that, as part of an arts admin job. So the coding sort of followed on from that. I was a little bit curious about it. I thought it could be a handy backup, could be useful if I was going to do more arts administration work on the side. And I really, really surprised myself by really, really, really enjoying it. So I was kind of doing that as a hobby while traveling for work. And then COVID happened, and all of those fears about the insecurity of a performance career really, really came home to roost. I had 7 months straight of work just cancelled in the space of about a week. And so I think at that point I really was thinking, okay, well, you know, there's never going to be a time where don't have to make a choice between, you know, the singing work that I'm doing and training to do something else. So this is the moment to do it. And tech came because I had been really enjoying that coding that I was doing. It seemed like a career where I could balance that with my singing quite well, where there's a lot of different options, like, you know, the possibilities of what you can do with a computer science degree in terms of what sort of place you work and what sort of product you build are pretty much infinite. So that was extremely exciting to me. So that was why.
Thank you, Margaret. I think it was really awesome. I think it's really awesome, first of all, that you're an opera singer. It's beautiful music, and that you find a passion in tech and you transitioned into tech. So thank you for sharing your story. And I think it's really important for people out there that are maybe from a different background and they want to transition into tech, and it's really good for them to hear the likes of your personal career story and inspire them when they want to change into tech. So thank you for sharing that. So Guiomar, I have a question for you now. So, was changing into tech all that you hoped for? And have you come across any challenges?
Um, yes, basically. The short answer is yes. I guess in part, probably, like I already had a better idea what I was getting into, which definitely helped me. But I did really enjoy it as well. Like I was expecting it to be challenging, and it was. I was expecting to keep learning, and I did. And maybe the part I didn't see that obvious right from the beginning was that there is a lot of different roles and small specializations. So it's also very easy to keep growing and to keep changing and to keep doing something different and not get stuck, because it's very easy to go from this related skill set to this slightly different one and keep moving. And to me, that is something very interesting. And obviously, it's a interesting environment with a lot of interesting people around and flexibility. Like it has a lot of good points. The one thing that maybe I didn't see coming, and to give a more balanced idea of what it has been for me, is that I did definitely, and I still do, have a severe case of imposter syndrome. And I think coming from a different background or coming a bit later, and probably being a woman or any sort of different background where you, rightfully so or not, perceive that you're going to be judged harsher or more questioned, it definitely had an impact for me. And it's, to some extent, still does, but it definitely gets better. It definitely happens to a lot of people. It's not just you that feel like, oh my god, I don't know, everyone else has it sorted out but me. That feeling happens to loads of people. I think what also helped me, it was basically being brutally vulnerable and honest. So when everyone around me knows what I know and what I don't, and I still can manage to do my job, and people seem to appreciate it, and I can add things, it makes it easy to realize, okay, with all the limitations, this is good enough, and I can keep learning because I'm never gonna know enough. And at the end of the day, like as I was actually telling Margaret yesterday, if you are good enough to worry, you're good enough. So you're worrying because you care, and that caring is it's gonna get you through. It's gonna make you improve. It's gonna make you be a good engineer.
Thank you, Guiomar. And I think that was very inspiring what you just said there. If you're good enough to worry, you're good enough. Good enough for it. And I think it's really good opening up about imposter syndrome, and for everyone to hear like about your story as well about that, because so many women experience imposter syndrome. And I mean, when you're first introduced to tech, there's a lot to learn, and it can become very overwhelming. So we do hit those periods all the time. I do as well, about I feel imposter syndrome. So yeah, thanks for sharing. And yeah, we're all a community, and we can be open and talk about if anyone feels they have their work colleagues to speak to, the WWCode community. If you want to talk about your personal feelings towards these feelings you have at work about imposter syndrome. So yeah, no, thanks for opening up about that today, Guiomar. And also, if anyone has any questions for Margaret or Guiomar, please add them to the chat, because we'll be getting to them at the end when we finished our questions. So the next one. So Margaret, this one's for you. How did you change into tech, and how did you do it?
Great. Yeah, I think Guiomar actually and I have very similar stories on this one. So as I mentioned, I started learning online initially as a hobby. And I have to say, although like my recent career doesn't look like a typical preparation for tech, if you looked at me at school, I think I did chemistry, physics, maths, and applied maths for my leaving cert. And I never for a second considered studying computer science. I think because the stereotypes about the sort of person that I thought did computer science were so strong. And I have to say, I have two older brothers who are two older brothers and a younger brother who are all in IT, and they probably didn't help my impression of the stereotypes. But so I'd started learning online. I started with a web development course on Codecademy. I got about 3/4 of the way through that and got stuck, I think. Started tearing my hair out trying to learn JavaScript, and then switched to a computer science course, which is mostly Python. And that, something just clicked in my brain. I was just like, I love this. I am so excited by this. And I had adored maths at school, and like I just felt the same part of my brain just turn back on and light up after 12 or 13 years. So that was amazing. So then, say COVID hit, and I had this period of time, and massive shout out to Springboard for this. I signed up and did a higher diploma at UCD. So it was 2 full semesters of lectures and project work, and then the final semester was an internship, which I'm just coming to the end of now. And that was one of the most intense experiences of my life. I don't think I've ever worked harder. But it was really, really worth it. I was impressed when I came to Zendesk at how well that had prepared me for what I was doing at Zendesk. And I was also impressed while I was studying it, how well actually that independent online study had prepared me for the course. Like, I really felt there were things, you could hit. So just to emphasize, if anybody is sort of thinking about it and not sure and doesn't want to commit to, a year yet, start looking at stuff online. It's helpful. It will get you there, and it'll give you a good idea. So that was my journey to here.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret. And that's true. There's so many resources online to help, people out there to get started in their tech career. And it's really good, that all this is available for an opportunity to do online learning as well. So, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, WWCode, we also have a lot of resources online in our communities as well for everyone across the world. And learning to code nowadays is accessible for everyone, and there's a lot of free resources out there as well. So we're lucky to be here in this day and age to access that as well. And so both for Margaret and Guiomar, I have a question for both of you now. So what do you miss? Do you miss anything from your old job? I'm really interested to hear if you do or not.
I'm happy to take that one first. So I've been very, very lucky that my sort of hunch that this could be a career that I could balance well with continuing to do music at a pretty high level has paid off. So I have, I've still been able to keep performing professionally, doing a fair bit of concert work and tour work. I'd say probably a 6-week opera rehearsal schedule is off the cards now, but that's okay. And if anything, honestly, I would say it's allowed me to be a lot more selective about the jobs that I take. Like, I can just pick the projects that I really want to do. I don't have to do, the sort of less appealing jobs that you do to pay the bills when you're a freelance singer. And there's a lot of stuff I don't miss. It was quite stressful. You've a bit more flexibility. Ironically, working for a company as opposed to being freelance, I think you've got a bit more control in some ways over your time, because, as I say, you're not kind of compelled to do every job that comes your way. And when you are on a rehearsal schedule, you're committed for it. You can't really ever get days off. If you're in a job, you're in a job, which was a pleasant change, being able to just go, oh, actually, I want to attend my friend's wedding, or I want to go do this, and being able to do that. So for me, it's really worked out so far extremely well.
Nice. Myself, I do like the very direct way in which you can help people in clinical psychology, even though I have to say that, it wasn't exactly what originally I had hoped for, which, had to do as well with my own change. But there is obviously something there where you're, very much focusing your entire knowledge and attention to trying to help someone, that it is also rewarding for yourself. And then on the research side of it, I do miss the, pursuing knowledge for knowledge, or maybe, to be even more honest, being there in my desk in the basement, just being able to go for hours and hours, going from one article to the next, this book to the next, and kind of go in a deep hole. And that was sort of my job, which was great. But obviously, overall, I'm very happy I made the change, because there were a lot of downsides that came with all of that.
Yeah, so after telling us what you miss from your old job, like, is there any skills that you get to use from your old jobs?
Okay, maybe I'll start. But it is psychology. Not use it will be harder than using it. So even though you having studied and care and knowing and into human behavior is kind of hard to even detach from any job, really. And I will say, human interaction and human behavior will be you will be hard pressed to find one where that doesn't matter. Since I have moved towards team lead, it is much more relevant, because a lot of my job, other than maybe the technical side of the project, it is actually about managing humans and making sure they're productive and happy and motivated. And obviously, from what I read and from what I apply, a lot of it is just coming and hitting home from, I know this theory and I know this framework, and so it makes it all fall into place, if that makes sense. Margaret?
Yeah, so I get asked this question actually sometimes, and I think people are always kind of looking for me to draw like some really cool thread on how like singing helps me code. And I have to disappoint people there, because they're obviously
you get to impress your coworkers occasionally with videos. Let me tell you that.
True. That's true. Get some kudos for that. So no, but there are plenty of things that do carry over. So I think like any like performing musician, there's a ton of like discipline and organization, and especially when you're starting out, you really have to be your own manager, and that carries over very, very well to any job. I think as well, often if you're talking about music, you're talking about very abstract concepts which are quite hard to communicate. So I think that probably is good prep for trying to explain technical concepts as well. I remember actually being asked in an interview if I'd ever had to explain like difficult technical concepts to non-technical people, and initially I was like, no, not really. And then suddenly I went, hang on, you taught singing for 5 years. You did it every day, for 50 weeks a year practically. So that helps for sure. And I think it's more specific to sort of being an opera singer, and the sort of job that I did was you would be going from project to project with a new group of people, and you might only be working with them for a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, max 6 weeks. So you get very good at forming a good team. Like, you have to have trust in your colleagues when you're doing music project, especially if you're acting with them. So you get good at sort of like getting comfortable around new people, working as part of a team with relative strangers, and communicating ideas to people. And I think that has been really, really good preparation in some ways. I mean, I was very surprised when I started this internship at how much time I spent talking, obviously, about concepts and about coding, because there's no point if you're a brilliant coder unless you're very, very clear about what it is you're actually trying to achieve before you start. You're gonna get yourself into trouble. So I'd say those soft skills have helped a lot, definitely.
Yeah, thank you both. And Margaret, I think that was very transferable skills there. And do you ever sing and code at the same time?
This is actually, I can't even listen to music while I'm doing anything else. I just find it so distracting. So no, not really. Like, I'm probably home. I don't know. I haven't been in an office with colleagues to tell me to shut up yet. So.
So that brings us into the last question, and then we will hand it over to our participants who have asked questions. So this one's for you, Guiomar. Would you say it is over once you get your first job?
No, not by a long shot, but I mean, obviously, getting the first job is the hardest and the most intimidating part of it all, and it's an awesome achievement. It feels like that, and it is, and you should pat yourself in the back definitely when you do. Uh, and the job just transforms, it shapes, like the job of guiding your career, to say, like you have made it through this part where you kind of need to take a leap of faith, or get an employer to trust you when you still don't have that CV where you can go like, oh, I have 5 years experience, which your life gets much easier in that sense. But also you go from maybe having a degree or a high diploma or whatever it is, where it's like, oh, this is what I have to study, and it's very guided and prepare for you to take a bit ownership of that, and you might want to decide what do you want to specialize on. Now that I know a bit more, what I like, or what am I missing, and you might need to start guiding that yourself. And it might be a bit of online learning. There's loads of platforms, as it has been mentioned before, with great content, and a lot of it is for free. There is a lot of learning in your day-to-day job that shouldn't be discounted. You are learning loads of soft skill and technical skills, and being conscious about it, and making sure that you're engaging in interesting projects and improving as you go along. It is also super important. Like, most of what you apply is not really what you learn in a course as cool as those are. And then I will mention that I found personally that having mentors is super useful. And it might feel intimidating. It was to me, to go anyone and go like, do you want to mentor me? But it doesn't have to be official. It can just be people that you trust and can go along. And maybe there has been even spoken out that it's mentorship, but you are on it anyways. And it doesn't have to be a single person. Like, you can have different people that you will go to for different things, maybe for more technical questions, or maybe for more career guidance, or maybe someone that gets you talking and figure out your own things. So you can have an array of people that you go to and you trust. But I would say definitely do that and ask people, and don't be afraid of doing that, because a lot of people, you will be surprised how happy they are to help you, and it gets you a long way, I would say.
Thank you. And yeah, mentorship, very, very important, especially in this year for starting out in your career as well. So yeah, like Guiomar said, reach out to people, and yeah, people actually want to mentor you, which is so true. And yeah, the beauty of working in tech is it's challenging and it's ongoing learning. You learn every day in your job, which is so rewarding. But yeah, Guiomar, thank you for everything that you just shared with us there. And I guess that then brings us to open the floor to our participants. And if you want to share the first question. So this is from Bon Chung. And this is a question for Margaret. Do you feel any knowledge gap between you and other interns who have a 4-year degree in computer science?
Interesting. I can't. So actually, the way Zendesk runs its internships, I haven't worked that closely with the other interns because we're placed one on a team. So I actually don't really feel like I know the answer to that question. I suspect not, but
I'm gonna chip in as your manager and say we hired you. So there is that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the higher diploma that I did at UCD was extremely well set up, and it described itself as trying to cram a 4-year bachelor's into 1 year, which is a tall order. I mean, it felt like I had a lot to learn when I joined, but I don't know if that would have been different if I was going in with a bachelor's as opposed to a higher diploma. So there you are. If you're thinking about doing a higher diploma, I would say don't feel like you're going to be behind the people coming in with bachelors. Definitely not. You'll be bringing other things as well.
Thank you, Margaret. And yeah, I think that's really interesting to hear as well. That you know, there's people out there, you know, like myself, like did a 4-year degree, and you're able to do yours, get your experience in 1 year, and yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of learning. So yeah, congratulations.
It was a lot of learning. It was super.
And look where you
intense.
are now, so that's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I you know, I have to give kudos as well to UCD, and again, that's, I'm sure the high diplomas are similarly set up, but I feel like they really gave us a very, very good broad set of skills to take into jobs afterwards with us and set us up well. I didn't feel I had to learn a new language when I started at Zendesk. I'd never touched Ruby before, and I'd only done like a little bit of JavaScript, so I'm currently trying to wrap my head around React and more front-end languages. But I think in terms of like grounding with the concepts and things, they did a superb job.
That's good. And we have another question as well. Yeah. So when it comes to switching careers, what's the first step to getting a job outside of getting an education? And this one is from Ruhard Baikit. Hopefully I pronounced your name okay.
So I take it that's sure. So you have many ways to go about that. Obviously, it feels like a daunting one. What Margaret just did, for example, it was, you know, done a course that had an internship at the end, and like, you know, many courses you don't really need to have it, like, but you could take an internship at the end. Obviously, it is easier to get an internship than it will be to get a fully paid job. And if you do it, I will say to be selective in which companies, because internship can mean very different things in different companies. But you can learn a lot, and obviously once that comes to turn, if the company is willing to hire you, they already know you're good, and they're willing, and they might be willing to keep you. So that is definitely one important way. Going to events and getting to know people and the opportunities and whatnot, it can be helpful almost regardless of what you do. It is another way if you don't have the opportunity or the option to do an internship. Going back to actually to the internship, if you are thinking that it's not for you because it's not paid, different companies might do it in a different way. And for example, at Zendesk, they are paid. So if that is a reason for you, oh, I can't afford to be unpaid for 6 months, don't discount it and just maybe check in which companies you could apply. There are some other programs sometimes, like for graduated people and whatnot, that you could definitely check out as well. And yeah. I will say, just be fairly active. It's going to be trickier to get your first job than any other job. That is sadly the reality of it, because you're gonna have to prove that. Another way as well, if you don't have experience, is to have like a portfolio. So you can go to an employer with, I don't have 7 years of experience, but I have done this and this, and and it works, and you can check it out, and that can go a long way as well. And yeah, and not to lose faith in yourself, and know that you might need to try a few more times. That doesn't imply you're not good. It's just that this step is a bit harder.
Definitely. And I think, just from my experience of kind of doing interviews within the last year for that first job, I think I kind of came in a somewhat fortunate position, because I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know how these are going to go. And I was like a little bit, I'm not quite sure. I think because the first couple of interviews I did, I remember doing an interview and somebody looking at my CV and just being like, we've no idea what to ask you because you don't have any experience. And I think at that point I just went, well, I don't know what to say to you. But they would sort of ask me questions. And I think having an education and knowing things is obviously important, but I also think it's really important in the early stages when you're interviewing to actually acknowledge the things that you don't know and to be upfront and not feel like you have to know everything. And I don't think employers expect you to know everything. And I think having the confidence to say, oh, I don't actually know about that, but you know what, I'd love to learn, can probably be more impressive. And I've certainly heard stories about people who have tried to bluff their way through answers and it's not gone well. So for whatever that's worth as well.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, Margaret. It's good to be open and honest because you learn in your job, you learn every day, and you're not expected to know everything in an interview. So it's a very, very good tip to share for anyone that that maybe has an interview coming up. Okay, so we have another question for you, and this is a fun question. So, what's one word you would use to describe working at Zendesk?
Guiomar,
okay, given 5 more minutes, I'd probably come up with a different answer. But right now, the one that comes to mind is collaborative. One thing I do love about Zendesk, and to the outsider, it might feel like, oh, she works at Zendesk. She has to say that. No, I don't. It is that, I really love the culture. I really love that, people do work together, do collaborate to get to solutions and to an answer and to help each other out. There is a very honest way of approaching problems. There is not, egos or political. Well, I would not put my name inside and saying there has never been a political argument in Zendesk. It's a big enough company, but it's not definitely the perception that you will have, and not a common occurrence by any means. And how people are willing to learn and to discuss and to work as a team. I might sound silly, but it's not the case in every place. And to me, that changes the culture so much, to have people that are, eager to learn and honest and helping each other. It's just an entirely different experience.
Yeah, I would say, if I had to use one word, respectful. And again, I don't just have to say that because I work here. But I think it's like Guiomar talked about the collaborative spirit, but I think there's just so much respect, like, for every colleague and for every employee and for work-life balance. Like, that is just taken so seriously here, and I really appreciate that. And I have not, you hear stories about women in tech and dealing with situations in other companies, and I'm happy to say that I've certainly not experienced that. Yeah, it just feels everybody's respected, everybody's valued, and everybody's whole self and whole life is taken seriously.
Thank you. That was really good to hear your one word to describe Zendesk. And yeah, I want to thank you both for coming here today to share your career experience about transitioning into tech. And we had many questions from our participants. And just a reminder to everyone, this is going to be shared on YouTube in a few weeks. So for anyone that wants to share this with their colleagues or friends about Margaret and Guiomar's story, that'll be available soon. And again, I want to thank you both so much for joining us today and sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sapphire. It's been a pleasure. Thanks
you.
a million.
Bye.
And that then, I have one more thing to say as well. So at WWCode, we have a lot of resources about transitioning your career into tech. And you can find this we have a YouTube playlist of a lot of talks around this topic. I think Anna is going to share that in the chat. But I guess then that will bring us to our next talk.